Welcome to Future Focus, the Next Gen OD Canada podcast, your go-to source for insights and inspiration as you navigate your optometry journey.
Whether you're a student or a recent graduate in your first few years of practice, we're here to explore the topics that matter: career paths, job opportunities, board preparation, and more.
Each month, we'll bring you expert guests and practical tips to help you thrive in the world of optometry.
And just before we begin, we'd like to give a shout out to our sponsor, OSI Group. If you're thinking about building an independent practice, it's easy to see it as a solo journey, so a singular vision shaped by your own hard work and determination. But here's the thing, true independence is often best achieved in a community.
OSI Group empowers independent optometrists through community, education, and the resources they need to thrive. As a member, you get all the advantages of a large network while staying firmly in control of your future. Visit www.opto.com for more. So, let's shape the future of optometry together on Future Focus, the Next Gen OD Canada podcast. Welcome back to the Future Focus podcast. We are so excited. This is episode 8. And we have a very, very special guest here, Dr. Kerry Salsberg. And Kerry, I'm going to pass the mic over to you on this lovely Sunday to just give the podcast listeners a little bit of an intro for those who don't know you and a little bit about how you got to where you are now.
Great. Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's a beautiful sunny Sunday. So I got my son early in the morning and I'm glad to just cool down now. Kerry Salsberg, I graduated from the University of Waterloo in 1994, many years ago. I'm a second-generation optometrist. My dad started the practice in 1972, so we've been in practice for a long time. And I knew at a young age that I always wanted to go into optometry. I think I was in grade 1 when I told my friends what I was going to do. I was going to follow my dad's footsteps. And I think it had to do a lot with the interactions that he had with his patients. These lifelong relationships, like interesting people, stories all the time. I mean, he didn't get into names, but he told me about all the patients that he had that day, and it sounded like so much fun. And then when you couple taking care of somebody with also the sales of, having an optical gallery, I thought this was exactly what I wanted to do. So I didn't falter. I think from grade 1 onwards, I had a direction. And fortunately, I got into University of Waterloo after second year. So I was happy about that because I didn't want to waste my time anymore in school. And I've been in private practice now for over 30 years. And so when I started with my dad, we had a very small operation. It was a wartime house in Midtown Toronto. We bought 2 other properties over the years. We kind of expanded legally or illegally. I don't know of what our counselor would say, but we bridged the offices and we realized that we wanted to go big. And so we had this grand dream of being the Holt Renfrew of eye care. And although it took us about 10 to 15 years to realize that dream, we finally broke ground on our new space during COVID. And now we have about 10,000 square feet with 9 doctors and 40 support staff. So we're in a good place. And I love what I do. I love the fact that I'm engaging with you guys to talk about my experience, because as much as I've had successes in my career, I've also had some failures. And, my wife calls me an optometry savant. I can't figure out the TV in front of me, but I can figure out what makes the patient tick. And I can figure out what I want to do to provide really the best in class care. So that's been my mission over the last 30 years is to always grow in what I know, but offer an incredible experience to patients. And I think that we have our niche, and I want to share that experience with independent optometrists and especially young doctors getting into the practice now.
Yeah. I love that you're a second generation OD, Kerry, because I feel like that gives people such a unique experience. I'm a first generation OD, so I'm always in awe when I meet anybody who's had an OD parent or grandparent. Do you feel like you practice very similarly to your dad, or are you like a completely different OD in the chair compared to how he was?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think I practice very similarly, and through osmosis, I learned some of the tricks of the trade. I understand what patients want in an experience and to be kind and how to be attentive and listening and leaning forward as opposed to automating the process of eye care, which I think after 5 years would create a lot of boredom and profession fatigue. So I took a lot from my dad in terms of how he markets his practice, how he creates these lifelong relationships, how he chooses frames, and how he creates a sizzle. And there's a lot of sizzle that we can offer our patients. Otherwise, I don't think I'd be able to practice with my dad if we had different philosophies. But we practiced together for a good 20 years, and I actually miss that. He retired about 3 years ago, or just before COVID. But we had a great relationship, and obviously he's proud of where the practice is right now. And I'm proud of him for giving me the tool set to create this Dream practice that we've made.
Yeah, for anyone listening who's not familiar with Eyes on Sheppard, it's definitely a sizzling practice. I've checked it out too, so it's definitely sizzling. And then Kerry, looking back to when you first started, what advice would you give to new grads who are considering practice ownership someday?
Well, I think it really depends on what, make the decision. Are you going to be a corporate optometrist? And there's nothing wrong with that. Or if you want to have your own practice, which I think is really the best way to go, is just to dream big. Make sure you have a 2, 5, and 10-year plan. Invest in your practice. I've always maintained that for every dollar you put into your practice, your return on investment is 3, 4, 5 times that. So I think we have to be risk takers. I think we have to be knowledgeable in terms of what we can afford, what is the best way to go about private practice, looking at demographics, looking at location, what services you want to provide. But I say go for it. I mean, I've never been motivated by money. Money always follows, but I've always been motivated by my passion to create some amazing experiences and to employ 40 people and to have 8 doctors that are each providing their own niche. So have a plan, but do it. Life is short and it's so rewarding. I think private practice there's so many facets about it besides just giving care. It's the sales, it's the services, it's the experience. And I think it's very rewarding to build somebody or to at least know where you came from and know where you are and know where you want to go. So absolutely, I would encourage anybody to go into private practice.
Yeah, I love that. I think you said something where you say, what makes a patient tick. And I think that's such a key thing. And I think that takes time to learn for sure as a new grad. When you first come in, you're just trying to figure out, what do I do next? And it takes some time to, sit back and observe your patient and how they're reacting to how you're performing your eye exam. Do you have any clinical pearls or tips about the patient experience and how to make that an outstanding experience for our patients?
Yeah, I read a great book by David Premier called Sell the Way You Buy, which goes into the psychology of what makes people tick. How do they make purchasing decisions? I also recommend a book, Steve Vargo, which is Prescribing Change.
Yeah, I've read that.
Leaning into your patient.
Yeah.
I think as a new grad, and I fell prey to the same thing, it was like a magic show. And I had to do my 30-step exam, and I didn't want to forget anything. I didn't want to miss anything. And then all of a sudden you finesse it. And then you realize you can do an exam in about 10 minutes. And it's that time that you have. So we book every 30 minutes. It's that time that you have to really connect with the patient and to listen. We always want to come up with a diagnosis or a solution, and we interrupt patients probably 15 seconds into their, diatribe in terms of what's going on. So I think it's really important to just sit back and listen and find out what's important to them and really enjoy the experience. I think it took me 5 years before I felt comfortable to kind of go, okay, I'm going to find out about Mrs. Jones' trip to Italy last year and making notes on, memorable experiences that you had with that patient, but also life goals that patient had or life experiences, and really try to resonate with them. They just want to be heard, and to have that human interaction, which is so missing in a lot of the services that are available today, where everything's automated. I think it's important just to kind of listen and to connect with patients.
Yeah. I find that even for me, I'm a new practice owner myself. My business has been open for just under 2 years. And a lot of advice that we had from some ODs was, make sure you're optimizing It's always that word optimize. How are you going to optimize how many exams you can fit in a day? Have 2 exam lanes, you can stack your patients. And that's just not who I am anymore. I love to make connections with my patients, which led me to open my own private practice because, of course, working as an associate, you're kind of working under sometimes the time constraints of what your employer expects you to do. And yeah, you're right. I can do an eye exam in 10 minutes or less, but I spend 30 to 45 minutes per patient. And sometimes my staff doesn't like that either. It take too long, but you're just talking to them. You're asking them questions. You're not selling in the room, but you're explaining why I'm recommending this because we just talked about your hobbies for 20 minutes. And so now I can tell you about this prescription that's going to work well for you, or about these contact lenses that are going to help you when you're road biking and all these things. So it definitely makes a connection with the patient, but it also makes your practice more effective with what you're going to prescribe, and your patients more likely to follow through with what you actually recommend when you take that time. So I totally agree with you there.
They want to trust you. And I think that when you're front facing and you're not buried into your EMR, which we'll talk about soon, and having eye contact and just listening, people want to talk, they want to be heard. And what a great opportunity to have 30 minutes to not only to help people see, look, and feel better, but also learn about them. And that's the fun that I have after 30 years. I mean, the profession of optometry could be quite monotonous if you're just going through that 30-point assessment. But when you have, you look at your schedule and you go, oh, I can't wait to talk to this person. It's exciting. And I enjoy it just as much as when I started. And I think optometry has transformed in so many ways. I mean, think about all the niches, all the different services that you can provide to your patients. So what an opportunity, an exciting time for optometry.
Yeah. I'm going to add one more question actually to that topic, Kerry, because I'm like you mentioned, your practice is large and you hire a lot of ODs. For any optometry students and new grad ODs, what advice do you have for them if they are practicing in a certain setting where there is a high demand to have a higher volume of patients within their schedule, but they're starting to realize that they want to spend more time with their patients to build that connection, and maybe they want to extend their, exam time per schedule? Do you have any advice for how new grads could approach their employer or the ODs that they're working for to see if they can, adjust their personal exam time so that they can start practicing the way that they want rather than practicing the way the employer would want?
Listen, I feel bad for new grads because a lot of them are coming from the States. The US dollar is high. They have debt levels that they need to pay off. So the panic is, look, I got to pay these student loans off. And maybe the easiest route is to go the corporate way and to, follow whatever the protocol is of that corporation to see as many patients and to write as many scripts. I think you reach a point in your life where you go, is this what I want to do for the next 20, 30 years? And for some people, that's fine. They love the 9 to 5 check in, check out. For other people, I think, you may want to break free and say, you know what? I want to practice. I want to live the rest of my life doing something that I love, but I want to make my own rules. And I want to extend that exam from, let's say, 20 minutes to 30 minutes or even 40 minutes. What's amazing, though, that we found during COVID is we saw far less patients, but our revenue per patient went up and my enjoyment of optometry went up as well. So I don't think that students may have the luxury of going to X corporation and say, you know what, I want to do an hour exam. They can certainly ask. But I think at some point, it's the straw that broke the camel's back. Money's important. I get it. But when you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel that you're paying off those debt levels, make the move. And make the move as soon as you can if that's the type of practice that you want to have.
Yeah, that's great advice. We're going to transition a little bit to talking about practice management systems. There's so many out there and so many different options that as a business owner, you have to choose from. And I'm just curious how you went about choosing one that kind of aligned with your patient care philosophy and how you came to make that decision. I don't know if you ever had paper charts.
I've always had paper charts. And I'll tell you why. I am a big believer of paper charts. I'm able to look at the patient and with my right hand, write notes, or I can follow up after the exam and fill out those fields. So I was probably one of the, and for people that know me, I embrace technology. If it's new, I have it.
Yeah.
And so I'll make those investments. But that's the one thing that I kept stumbling was that I didn't want to be glued to the computer. I didn't want my patient to be on the left-hand side. And I'm at a 90-degree angle looking at the computer and having an interaction with the computer, not with the patient. So it took me many, many years to kind of bite the bullet and decide that I would go into the EMR. And so when we built out our office, I actually built out a little desk that allowed me to have my computer and my mouse, but still face the patient. And what I realized after many, many years of procrastinating and not embracing EMR was that although it was difficult in the first 6 months to kind of transition from paper to because you'd have to put in all the new fields, after 6 months, it was a breeze. And now I had extra time to really connect with that patient, whether it was transferring data or having access to data on the fly. In fact, I'm able to make a diagnosis without my patient even being in that chair because I have all that information pre-exam. And so when that patient comes in, there's kind of a sigh of relief that, hey, this is not complicated. I looked at the optos, I looked at the OCT, I looked at their K readings, their pressures, their previous glasses, and their current refraction. This is easy.
Yeah.
And so I can just kind of go, okay, this is going to be fun. Conversely, if I see something on an optos or if I see an elevated pressure, I know that I have to go right into the exam. And so it gives me the heads up. And I love the EMR that we're using. In no way is this a commercial for Optosis, but we did our due diligence. And there are a lot of good practice management systems out there, both Canadian and US based. And I think for me, one of the reasons I chose Optosis was it is a fully integrated program. It does everything. And it does everything in terms of patient communication, scheduling, online booking, a database of all the contact lenses and spectacle lenses. So those processes that are automated, I want to maximize the efficiency. So if I can make those automated touch points even more efficient, great. But when I have that interaction with the patient, I don't want it to be automated. I want it to be personal. I want it to be real. I want it to be authentic. And so by streamlining some of these kind of monotonous, boring things, I just have a much better experience, and so does the patient in that exam room.
Yeah, I love that. I try to practice the same way now at Northern Site. It's more everything on the back end is automated, and then everything on the front end always feels like a new, fresh, unique experience for the patient. And so the staff members know that. So even the pre-testers, the staff at the front desk, they know everything has to be automated secretly. And then when the patient shows up, they're having conversations with them in a different way, in a different tone, just making sure that the patient doesn't feel like they're just a number or they're auto readings.
Absolutely. They don't want to feel like they're on an assembly line.
Anyone running a clinic knows how hiccups can turn into headaches. Scheduling conflicts, misplaced orders, these minor setbacks steal time from patient care. Optosis keeps everything connected and running your way. Scalable, intuitive, proudly Canadian, it's this nation's leading EMR and PMS that's fully optometry owned.
Optosis brings harmony to your workflow with custom exam templates, inventory, catalog syncing, and more. And with OSI Group behind it, you're backed a partner that understands what it takes to succeed. See what Optosis can do for you at optosis.ca. optosis.ca.
Do you have certain ways that you use, I guess, your EMR to help track certain data points to improve your clinic's efficiency and patient outcomes?
Yeah, so we're all about analytics. I'm a big believer in KPIs. I can tell you where we are during the week compared to last week in terms of revenue. I can tell you revenue per patient. I can tell you what our percentage of contact lenses versus spectacles versus exam fees. We have a 40%, 20% kind of rule where 40% of our revenue should be exam fees, 40% spectacle, and 20% contact lenses. So I can see the dynamics of the practice on a just-in-time process. So we do this every single day. So we look at who's performing, who's not performing. And again, I'm not motivated by money. I want to make sure that our doctors, our associate doctors, are really creating value for the patient. So if they're leaving services and products on the table, I want them to understand how they can be better practitioners. I want to be able to look at my data and know that I'm performing at the same level or better than in previous quarters. So I do a lot of KPI stuff. I want to know, who's dispensing, who's not dispensing. I want to know when patients leave with a prescription versus when they fulfill it in the office. And I also want to make sure that we often review files and go, we had a kid who was a -1 and there wasn't a recommendation of myopia control or any discussion. I want to make sure that the doctors seize that opportunity. Again, not just for financial reward, but to really help that patient and navigate them to a safe place later on in life, as opposed to worrying about retinal detachments and high prescription. So I love the ability with one click of a button to really get the pulse of the practice. And we do this daily. I know a lot of practices look at their performance at the end of the year. That's backwards thinking. I think we have to always look forward, really know what's happening on a day-to-day basis so you can pivot, as opposed to waiting for the year and going, we could have done this a little bit differently and had that wasted time. So we always want to make sure and understand that, hey, maybe this person didn't dispense because they had 15 children booked, and maybe we should balance that schedule with seniors and adults. So we really dissect the practice, the calendar, making sure that we have patients booked, making sure that we have no-shows, or we avoid no-shows right now. I think we're at about 3% no-show rate because we use Optocyst to remind patients about their upcoming appointment. And patients often will say, I got about 15 different emails.
Yeah.
But you know what? They showed up to their appointment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I'm willing to, and we just say, look, we just want to make sure that you're aware of how to park, where to go, and to make sure that you show up to your appointment. So I think patients are appreciative of that.
And since Optocyst is available for OSI members, which is great, a great opportunity for OSI members to use an excellent EMR system, what does OSI do for members? If you look at your KPIs and you see that there are areas that could be improved, because I know that OSI would offer like business coaching and training opportunities. But if you see your KPIs on a daily basis and you see that something is lower than what you would like, how can OSI jump in and help you? Or what do you typically use their services for to help office growth and KPI growth?
Great question. So I'm a big believer in always learning, always growing. So I will use our practice coach, Jazz, to come in, and she meets with our optical manager and our clinical manager to go over those things. And most people think that we understand what we're doing and we're a perfect operation. And by far, we are not. We always, want to pursue and be better with our numbers, be better with our experience. And so we're always looking at learning. And I think these practice coaches are great because they understand the industry. They understand what's working, what's not working for other practices. So leverage their talents, so leverage their knowledge base. The same can be said for reps. We had a rep come in last week and said that we were undercharging our lenses by about $150. Again, we're insulated. And again, we're in 10,000 square feet. I'm in a box of 10 by 10 all day. We don't know what's going on with the competition. And if I'm leaving money on the table, I want to make sure that we're not the most expensive, but we're also not, giving our services away. So I think these practice coaches are invaluable. And I love OSI for having that ability to kind of just share ideas and thoughts and bounce, different strategies off them and get their feedback.
Awesome. Yeah. I love using business coaches. I find that that's, again, in optometry school, we don't learn how to manage a business, right? And we, to some degree, we should, but also, our main goal is to become doctors, healthcare professionals. So that's the main goal when we're in school. And then, the minute you want to open a practice, you're like, what the heck am I doing? I don't know anything about business. And that's what the coaches are really for. So I find that for any new grad or any optometry student listening out there who, is hesitant about private practice ownership, there are experts out there who can definitely help you. And OSI is definitely one group that can offer that for you guys. And then, Kerry, just to wrap up this conversation, in terms of looking ahead, like you said, Eyes on Sheppard is huge, and you guys are always at the forefront of whatever technology is available, all the new innovations. So where do you see the future of the patient experience and data management heading in optometry in regards to EMR systems and KPIs and just kind of tracking your system?
Yeah, I what I love about Optosis is that they have such a big user base and they're always investing in software upgrades. I mean, it's continuous. And again, this is not a commercial to say this is the best system on the market, but there's strength in numbers and there's input in terms of what they can be using and some of the new future directions of EMRs. I'm a big believer in AI. I think we're going to have virtual scribes. I think we're going to have clinical decisions, like a didactic tree that allows us to take all these inputs from our equipment and from our findings, and then have the AI program lead us to a couple of differentials. So even obscure diseases, I think we're going to be able to better understand and better diagnose and get that patient to treatment if there's any sooner rather than later. I think that phone services are going to be all VoIP services where patient's going to phone in and you're going to get their whole history, see when their family members have been in. You'll be able to book appointments on the fly. You're going to have virtual receptionists, AI receptionists, where they can transact all from booking an appointment to checking on the status of glasses. I also think that we are going to have way better diagnostic equipment, and that's all going to be integrated into this EMR. So again, before the patient even sits down, you may have all that information at your fingertips with also prompts to guide you in terms of what to look for. I'm super excited. I think that AI is not our enemy. I think we have to embrace it in very constructive and ethical ways. But I think AI is here to stay, and I think that's going to make our lives much easier and provide a better patient experience going forward.
Definitely.
Yeah. We love talking about AI here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just so funny because I think like if you would have asked us even a year ago, we'd be like, what? Like, no,
What is
no.
it? Yeah.
But now, like, it's being embraced, and I think it's amazing. And, there's already a few kind of platforms out there that are eye care focused that are helping kind of do what you said with diagnostics. And I just think it's going to expand. I think the only issue with AI is it seems like everything's like its own entity, and we need something that's going to
Like an all-in-one.
all work together. Yeah.
I think that's coming. I think if there's an opportunity to monetize something, it's coming. Yeah. But remember, this is only 2 years old, and look how far
I
we've
know.
come. And it's amazing. There's so much euphoria about a certain platform, and then a week later, it's outdated.
It's out there.
I mean, it's changing at laser speed. But I use it for our marketing initiatives. We, in terms of experience, we always want to do things outside the box, and we've created our own beer. We've had a collaboration with Henderson Brewery, and now we just did a collaboration with a small sugar bush outfit up in Northern Ontario, and we have our own maple syrup.
That's
Oh my God, I love that.
In terms of the label, I went to ChatGPT and I said, create a slogan, and literally the first prompt, it is what it is. So we're running with that. I think, I will say that optometry is not transactional. It doesn't always have to be transactional. It doesn't have to be about dotting the I's and crossing the T's. I think it's about having fun. And I think in the next 10 or 15 or 20 years, however long I'm going to be practicing, I want to have fun. And I want to, kibitz with patients. I want to create unique, interactive environments. We've stimulated the senses with our office. We have, a scent, we have colors, we have plant life, we have music and interactive floors. And as much as that brings a smile to my patients, it brings a smile to our staff and doctors.
Yeah.
And we really love the environment that we're in. And, on a Sunday afternoon, I'm itching to go back to work. And after 30 years, I think that's pretty good.
Yeah.
Great. We'll wrap up the episode just with one piece of advice you could give. I don't even want to say to new grads, but, we do like to have a focus here on those new grads. But any optometrist, what's one piece of advice you would give to stay ahead as the profession continues to evolve? And I think you've given a lot of different pieces of advice, but one final comment.
I would say invest in yourself. You've chosen this path where schooling 6 to 8 years. Dream big and create memorable patient experiences. Have fun doing what you do. And don't be scared. The sky isn't falling. Often we look at being the victim of online ordering and LASIK and Specsavers and all these other companies that are going to destroy our profession. That hasn't happened. As long as you take control, you're able to pivot, you're nimble, and you invest in your practice and that patient experience, you're going to be fine.
That's wonderful advice, Kerry. That makes me feel better too, that my practice won't burn down to the ground. I love it. No, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time on, this beautiful Sunday to talk to us on Future Focus. And would you mind just sharing contact info if any of our listeners want to reach out to you, they ever have any questions for you, where can they find you?
Sure. They can find me at eyeker@gmail.com. So eyecare with an eyeker@gmail.com. And I really love interacting with young ODs because they're like sponges and they want to learn and they're passionate and they want to grow. And I think as somebody that's made mistakes, had successes, I'm always happy to help young ODs realize their potential.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Future Focus, the Next Gen OD Canada podcast.
You can find us on all major podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. For episode summaries and more resources, visit us at eyecarebusiness.ca.
Be sure to follow Next Gen OD on Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn for updates, news, and more insights into the world of optometry.
And this episode was brought to you by OSI Group, where connections, coaching, and collective buying power support your independent vision. Visit www.opto.com for more.
Don't forget to check out the show notes at eyecarebusiness.ca. Until next time, stay focused on your future.